Egide Ruhashya denies his family's ties to Habyarimana, but history doesn't disappear. Can history suddenly change because your political position has changed? Can relationships that were known for decades simply disappear because acknowledging them today has become politically inconvenient?
ntabwo uwo muryango navuga ko ari abantu babaye inshuti zanjye cyangwa babaye inshuti ziwacu. No, ntabwo uwo muryango navuga ko ari abantu babaye inshuti zanjye cyangwa babaye inshuti ziwacu. No, ariko ndabazi. Iyo mvuze ngo ndabazi ni ukuvuga ngo narababonye ku ishuri, sibyo? Narababonye ku ishuri, cyangwa se narababonye iwacu, cyangwa se nanjye nagiye iwabo. Icyo gihe ngira ngo wenda iyo mvuze gutyo umuntu ashobora kumva ko abo bantu ko kubazi. Iyo wageze ahantu, kandi ntabwo nageze iwabo mu rugo aho bari batuye mu ngo zitandukanye, nageze n'iwabo ku ivuko,
aho bavuka
ku ivuko ku Gisenyi muri Rambura, sibyo? Agasozi batuye kitwa Ntebe, sibyo? So iyo rero uba warabashije kumenya umuntu gutyo, ni ukuvuga ngo urabazi. Ikindi, okay, ni abantu nzi, nkaba mbazi amazina yabo kuko twize ku ishuri rimwe twese. Ni ukuvuga ngo Jean Pierre w'imfura yari imbere yanjye imyaka myinshi, ariko naramubonaga ku ishuri.
Hari himwiga
muri ka Kigali. Umukurikira Jean naramubonaga ku ishuri, ndetse yari n'inshuti ya mushiki wanjye Jacqueline, sibyo?
Yego.
Eric yiganye na Marie Rose, sibyo? Jean Claude uzambereye Marie Rose, umuntu aramuzi. Leon, umuntu aramuzi. Bernard, umuntu aramuzi.
You have just listened to that interview, and I want us to talk about it, not emotionally, but historically. Because what caught my attention was the attempt to distance the Ruhashya family from the family of former Rwandan President Juvénal Habyarimana. And for Rwandans who lived through that period, or who know the political history of Rwanda before 1994, this deserves serious examination. Colonel Ruhashya was not simply an unknown military officer who happened to live in Rwanda during Habyarimana's presidency. He belonged to the military and political environment surrounding the events of July 1973, when Habyarimana took power. That history matters. It doesn't mean that two families agreed on everything. It doesn't mean that every member of one family was personally close to every member of the other. But it does mean that when discussing their relationship, we cannot pretend that the historical context never existed. And then there are the personal connections that have long been described between these families. The man speaking in this interview reportedly attended school with one of President Habyarimana's sons. There is also the reported relationship involving Agatha Habyarimana serving as godmother to his sister. Those are specific claims, and they can be investigated and documented. So my question is very simple. If these relationships existed, why be uncomfortable acknowledging them today? Having known the Habyarimana family is not by itself a crime. Having gone to school with Habyarimana's son is not a crime. Your father having served alongside Habyarimana does not automatically make you responsible for Habyarimana's government. History is history. And this is precisely where I disagree with what I heard in this interview. Today, this man operates within Rwanda's current political system under President Paul Kagame. That is his choice, but a person's current political position should not determine how we describe the past. You can support Kagame today and still acknowledge who your father knew. You can work with the present government and still acknowledge the relationships your family had before 1994. You can even strongly disagree with the Habyarimana government today, while still being truthful about your family's historical connections. Those things are not contradictory. What becomes problematic is when today's politics appears to reshape yesterday's history. And younger Rwandans especially need to understand this. Many young people listening to interviews like this were born long after 1994. They did not personally experience Habyarimana's Rwanda. They don't know who was associated with whom. They don't know which officers worked together. They don't know which families socialized together or whose children attended school together. Therefore, when somebody who actually comes from that generation speaks about the past, young Rwandans may understandably assume that everything being said is the complete story. That's why historical context matters. And let me make another point very clear. This is not about saying that Habyarimana was perfect. It is not about saying his government should never be criticized. Every government should be examined critically. Habyarimana's government should be examined. Kagame's government should be examined. Every Rwandan leader should be examined. But criticism is different from rewriting personal history. You cannot choose your father according to today's politics. You cannot choose the people your father worked with according to today's politics. And you cannot change the school you attended or the people your family knew because the political environment has changed. That is why I find this interview so interesting. If you disagree with Habyarimana, say so. If you believe his government made serious mistakes, explain them. If you believe your father eventually disagreed with Habyarimana, explain that history too. Give us dates, give us circumstances, give us evidence. That is how serious historical discussion works. But distancing yourself from an uncomfortable part of your family's history doesn't automatically erase that history. And this is bigger than one individual. Rwanda has gone through enormous political changes. People who were powerful yesterday became enemies today. People who were enemies yesterday became allies. Families were divided. Military officers changed sides. Politicians changed positions. That complexity is part of Rwanda's history. We shouldn't simplify it simply because one version is politically more comfortable today. And this is why I encourage younger Rwandans to read. Listen to different witnesses. Compare interviews. Look at historical documents. Listen to people who supported Habyarimana. Listen to people who opposed him. Listen to former RPF officials. Listen to current government officials. Then compare their accounts. Because history should not belong exclusively to Kagame. It should not belong exclusively to Habyarimana. And it certainly should not belong to Rwanda Digest. History belongs to the evidence. So, to the gentleman in this interview, I would say this. You are entitled to your political choices today. You are entitled to support the current government. You are entitled to criticize President Habyarimana and his family. But if there were documented relationships between your family and Habyarimana's family, acknowledging those relationships should not be frightening. Because acknowledging history does not mean endorsing it. And denying history does not make it disappear. Rwandans can judge the past for themselves. Give them the facts, give them the complete context, and let them decide. Because governments change, political alliances change, people change, but history remains history. This is Rwanda Digest, and here we will continue examining Rwanda's history, not according to who holds power today, but according to the evidence we can find. Thank you for watching.